Over the last few years, Mappa have been cementing themselves as one of the giants of Japanese animation studios. Pretty impressive considering they've only been around since 2011. They got Vinland Saga, Attack on Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Hell's Paradise, which could do with some more love from them in their next season, and many other shows on their record. This season they are working on anime original Buchigiri, which is not the topic of this video. It's Mappa's first original anime film, Maboroshi. It was released in Japan theatres back in September last year and was released worldwide on Netflix January this year. I'll be briefing you in on the premise before going through the story, characters and art and what I think about the film as a whole. Let's get down to it. In 1991, in a rural town in Japan, a factory explosion causes life-altering circumstances for the population of the area. Nobody in the town can age, leave the area or express deep emotions. If anyone does the latter, they will be swooped up by a mysterious spiritual smoke wolf that reinforces the veil that the town is in, keeping them alive despite actually being frozen in time. The townspeople are ordered to remain like this in the hopes of the town one day returning back to normal. Our main character Masamune is a teenager living in the town, dealing with seemingly eternal teenage angst, along with his new situation where he meets a strange girl called Atsumi, who is tasked with taking care of a primal behaving child called Itsumi. Throughout the film, you see the three of them develop to try and find a way to solve the town's issue and go about their lives. The first thing that came to mind when I came across this was, damn, it's kind of long. So I was really worried that the story would bore me in places, and sad to say, it kind of did. And I'd go as far as to say the plot is probably the weakest thing about this movie. So much that I was ready to absolutely shit on it after watching it for the first time. But then I calmed down, realised it's one of those movies that needs to be watched if you didn't understand all of what's going on the first time around. And sure enough, I watched it again and found myself like, oh, a few times. The concept is cool, very much like a reverse perspective of Alice in Wonderland. Instead of focusing on the individual that came upon the setting by chance, we see the experiences of the town's inhabitants. But if you're not switched on for this movie, you're gonna end up very confused very quickly. I thought I could watch this once through and write up this script, but I was very wrong. But I didn't mind because at least the movie is pure eye candy. After watching it the second time, I realised I was wrong to give it the benefit of the doubt and blame myself for not being originally tuned in because the tonal whiplash and pacing is bad. Do I care that a teenager's hormones are raging as he gropes his femboy friend? Do I care that the school are getting the kids to plan for the future even though they are literally existing in a plane frozen in time and Masamune doesn't bother to write anything in his guidance forms because of it? No. This film was juggling themes of teenage rebellion, dealing with emotions, and walking us through the resolution of the town's very unique dilemma. The film title has its own symbol which means illusion, phantom, dream or vision. That's Japanese for you. As much as my brain being on monkey mode at the time felt like it would have been a better experience if the film was more straightforward, it was simply not made to be that easy to follow. However, I cannot excuse it for being boring in places. It's also worth noting the screenplay writer Mari Okada released a novel based on the film last year in July, 3 months before the movie was released in Japan theatres. Though due to Okada's story being overcomplicated, it does beg the question of whether or not the series of events is better portrayed in book format. Sad to say, I came up short in my, in fairness, shallow research for thoughts or reviews on the J novel. Therefore, the only way I can actually find that answer for myself is by buying it or reading a translation online, which I probably won't do. Anyone who has, however, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on the book and movie. I appreciate that I know more about the side characters here than in most movie anime. It was clearly intended to get viewers more invested in the town's depressing situation. But on the flip side, I can't ignore that it had a few stale moments because of certain extra scenes which gradually had me more and more impatient. Main character Masamune is your average teen who is at odds with the circumstances of his hometown. He's not insufferable, but you can find him annoying like you would maybe other teenagers in normal coming of age films. The real problem is his epiphany that comes out very early on in the story. Usually, you'd expect the main character to be in some sort of emotional turmoil to reach a turning point in the last third of the movie. However, in Maboroshi, this happens before we reach the halfway point and his love confession a little and around the last third. And even though there was only partial reciprocation at that moment, I'm pretty sure almost everyone watching knew that that was going to change by the end of the film. That being said, by the time we got to the last third, I really wanted things to finish up. Yes, I generally thought it was dragging that much. And the love triangle is just so bad. The female leads Atsumi and Itsumi are involved in a seemingly fast-moving love triangle with the main character. This coincides with the pacing issue. Although I understand Atsumi's emotional turmoil, that doesn't force me to like what I'm seeing. Masamune and Atsumi having a connection is obvious. Along with the both of them discovering the reality of their futures, teenage angst can amplify things even further. I was baffled at first by Itsumi becoming infatuated with Masamune after only a few on-screen interactions, but then it dawned on me that there's a lot of time unaccounted for in the movie, meaning that they've probably spent much more time than we've actually seen. I'm just annoyed that it feels like I have to push for this assumption rather than the movie actually conveying this to me. But with the main plot twist and the ending that follows is just too ambiguous for my liking. But now, in complete defense of the movie, it looks fantastic. The scenery, the visual effects of broken shards on the affected characters and on the plane of the town's existence, and the movement of the characters, animation is pretty much flawless. And yes, of course, it's Mappa. Their animators pay in their own blood, sweat and tears to ensure that their stuff looks good. I'm convinced that the reason the majority that watch this or who are still thinking about watching it is because it's made by Mappa. The absolutely eye-watering stuff that they're gonna see from a project that's had an abundance of time to perfect in comparison to a series is too much to pass off so easily. In closing, Maboroshi is a good example of what a good film is to most critics doesn't mean it's for everybody to enjoy, even amongst anime fans. For what it's worth, I could see many scenes of this movie being clipped and repurposed all over the internet for the next few years, if not decades. While a lot of you are going to think that Maboroshi made a brilliant take on the themes explored, some of you are going to think the film is too long, convoluted, and are going to be thrown off by the story direction. I'm with the crowd that supports the latter. I only understand the story after having a second watch and thinking about it for this video, so I'm not going to hold it against anyone who doesn't like the film and doesn't want to spend another 2 hours trying to get more clarity on the story. If it was boring to you the first time, best case scenario, it's a little less boring the second time. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comment section below. This is where I end the video. Thanks for watching. See ya.